Hello everyone, this is Professor Robert Solis. Welcome to this video lesson. We're going to be talking about the MessageBox. So I went ahead and created a C# program. I'm going to call it MessageBox 1, C# MessageBox 1. And so let me go ahead and drag and drop the various items like the button, a label, and also a text box. I'm going to move the label to the upper left-hand corner like this. And I'm going to go ahead and change the font size to 12 points. And then I'm going to change the text property to enter a number from 1 to 6. Let me go ahead and put that text box next to it, but before I do that, I'm going to change the font size property to 12 points. Then I can go ahead and move this into position. Right there, that looks good. Then I have this button, and I'm going to resize the button so that it goes from all the way to the right-hand side where that text box is. Left-hand side, you can see the blue line over there. And let me move it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. And I also need to change the font size for the text box. I'll type in 12 points for the size, and now I have this. Let me go ahead and change that text property to submit, and there we go. All right, the next thing to do would be to place a label down here to display the results. I think I'll just take this label over here, copy and paste it, which is Control-C, Control-V as in Victor. And I'm going to double click over here where it says, actually not auto ellipsis, sorry about that, auto size. There we go. Change that to false. Change the border style to fixed single. And now I can go ahead and reposition this thing, resize it. Something like that looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to make sure that that text is centered, middle center alignment. So for the text align property, I'm going to click on this drop down and select this guy right here, middle center. That looks pretty good. Let me get rid of the text by double clicking here, pressing backspace, getting rid of the text. Now I can single click and move, or I should say resize the form so that it looks something like this. You know my hatred for the minimize and maximize box, so I'm going to double click on maximize box, minimize box, get rid of those. And instead of form 1, we'll have number entry. So number entry, enter. And so now that's the text property rather for the form. Okay, I like how everything is looking. Let me go ahead and give names to the various controls. So I'm going to go over here to the name property for this particular text box. We're going to call that txtuser_num. This button we're going to call btn submit. And then of course for the label we're going to call that LBL result. LBL result. All right, let me click Save All and just double check, make sure I've named everything. txtuser_num, btn submit, LBL result. Looks like we're good. All right, I don't need the toolbox. I don't need the properties panel anymore. I'm going to double click on the button so I can go into the code area. And what I want to do is I just want to say, you entered, whatever the number is, right? So if they typed in the number 3, okay, you entered 3. If they type in the number 4, you entered 4. But what if they enter 7 or -1? Then I want a message box to appear, indicating that they entered a number that's out of the range. All right, so I'm going to go back over here to the code area, and let me type in my comments. So declarations, get user input, calculation, and finally output. For the declarations, ask yourself, what is it that the user gives to you? What is it that you give back to the user? In this case, the user is going to give us a number, and then we are going to generate some sort of an output string over here. So we'll say int user num and string, and we'll just simply call it output. If you wanted to, you could give it some initial value, which would be blank. That would be fine. So let me go ahead and put a space here. All right. Get user, by the way, that space is not necessary. I just like to make it look symmetrical. Get user input. Okay, so we'll say user num, and we're going to use the convert dot to int 32. This is a whole number, specifically 30-bit, so that means that this program can run on 32-bit processors, and 32-bit processor computers, that is. And we're going to type in txt user num.text, put the semicolon over there. So this is going to get the text property from this text box, convert it into a whole number, and then assign it into the variable user num. Well, once we've got that, we can go ahead and use the if statement, which I don't think I've introduced yet, but let me at least just kind of give you an idea of how this works out. So the if statement is a selection statement, and if something is true, then you do this. If something is false, you do that. And so what I'm going to say is if the user num is less than 1, or this is the symbol for or, this is the symbol for and. You know, the usage of the word or and in English are different. If I say, hey, would you and you like to go out to lunch? That's different than would you or you like to go out to lunch. So or means either this is true or this part is true. And what that means is if this is true or if this is true, then we do this if part of the statement. So we call this a logical operator, and I have a whole lecture available to talk more about logical operators. For right now, it's not so much important that you understand the if statement, because I have lectures that talk more about that. It's the message box that I really want to talk about. So the message box dot show parens. Now, when you see these triangles, what they do is they show you all the different flavors of message box. And I want number 7. Now, by the way, you don't have to tap this to make this thing work. This is like information that's presented to you. And in this case, notice that one of the flavors, flavor number 7, gives me a string. It gives me a caption, which is another word for title. I can display a message box. I can display a message icon. This is the one that I'm going to use. Now, again, you don't have to click these triangles. I just simply know it by heart because I've done it for so many years that I can say whatever the message is, which in this case is your number is out of range. Close quote, comma, and now we are on the caption portion, which means title. So I can just simply say invalid number. Say, for example, watch what happens when I hit comma. Now we are in the message box buttons, and if you just type in I don't even have to type anything else. Message box buttons. So what kind of button do you want to display? Dot. Do you want just the OK button? Do you want an OK and a cancel button? Do you want a yes and no? We just want an OK button. I'll double click on that, comma, and then now we are on the message box icons. And so I'll just simply say message box icon. There it is. Double click. Dot. What kind of icon do you want? The asterisk, the arrow, the exclamation mark, the hand. I'll just type in error. I'm just trying to illustrate this for you first. Press enter. All right. When the user inappropriately enters a number that's either less than 1 or it's greater than 6, then let me take this text box and blank it out, and let me take that label and blank it out. So what I'll do is I'll just simply say txt user num dot text, and we'll just simply set it to nothing. And I'm going to do the same thing with the label. I'm going to set that to blank or nothing. That way it clears out the inappropriate entry from the user. Now, if that's the case where the user entered some sort of an erroneous mistake, then we want to display this message box and clear out the text box and the label. If they did not, we call this the else statement. Open and close curly bracket. So if they really did enter a number in between that range, then I'll use that output string that I created over here, and we'll just simply say you entered, and then I'm going to concatenate that with convert dot to string, whatever the value is that was entered by the user. And then I'm going to display that into a label, specifically the LBL result label. Let's see what happens. Let me go ahead and run the program. And I'll move this over here. All right, so if I type in the number 5, which of course was within the range, you entered 5. Ah, look at that, a little bit of a mistake right there. I said you entered. I should have put a space right here, otherwise it's going to concatenate, as it should, this string with this number. So let me stop the program and fix that before it drives me crazy. And I'll just put a space right there. Okay, let me save my work, start the program, move this over here. Now if I enter the number 5, click submit, you entered 5. Perfect. This is working as it should. It goes to the else statement. Is the user number less than 1? Is 5 less than 1? No. Is the user number 5 greater than 6? No. So this is false, or this is false. So this statement is not true, and therefore we go over here to the else statement, which is going to send out the string you entered and then the number 5. And that's why you see that over here it's being placed into the LBL result.text property. Let me change this now to 7, say for example, and I'm going to click submit. All right, so now I get a message box, and that's what this is. So message box show, so in other words, the user number was 7. Is the user number greater than 6? Yes. Well, true or anything is true. And again, I'm just asking you to accept that right now. We're going to go more into detail about this. Don't worry about, hey, I have no idea how the if statement works or what the hell he's talking about in terms of logical operators. Don't worry about that. The big thing that I want you to grasp from this lecture is the usage of the message box. And we're trying to indicate to the user that something bad happened. And so we want to give the user a good experience even when bad things happen, so that we don't get, I don't know, the infamous Windows blue screen of death, or something crazy, some crazy messages they don't understand. We got to give them something understandable. And so in this case, notice that we can use the message box for that purpose. Here is the message. Your number is out of range, and so there it is. Invalid input, we called that the caption, right, or the title. There it is. What kind of buttons do you want at the bottom? Well, we just wanted an OK button, and so there it is. And then what kind of message icon? Let me go ahead and click this again. Sorry. What kind of icon do you want? Well, we just said we wanted the error icon. And so now I can click this, click OK, and notice over here it's going to get rid of that entry. Perfect. How about a negative number? So -5. Nope, that's not acceptable either because that's not in the range. How about the number 1? Well, that's acceptable because that's from 1 to 6, and so forth and so on. All right, so the message box really makes it easy to display a quick message, to bring to the alert to the user an alert of something bad that has happened. Over here I had the OK button. Let's just change it just for fun. So I'll say dot, and I want OK cancel. And over here, instead of error dot, I want, I don't know, the hand. Okay, I'm just doing this just to give you an illustration of what this would look like. So I enter the number 7. Okay, so over here, I've got the OK and the cancel button. I don't see the hand over here. That's kind of strange. Here, let me close the program here, and let's see what other options I have. Dot information. Let's see what that looks like. I'll again run the program. Building it 7, and okay, so it's got the letter I here for information, and here's the OK cancel. Let me go back to this, just the OK button by itself, something like this, and let's try something else besides information, just again to show you some of these different options. This one says warning. What does that look like? So let me run the program. Again, I'll type in the number 7. Okay, so it looks like warning looks like this. And, I guess you could go through every single one of these and just to see what it looks like, and then choose the one that you feel is best. Notice that just the OK button is displayed because that's what I changed it to. If I wanted to change the caption, or if I wanted to change the actual message, again, I could do that. Let me go ahead and close the program. So that is how you would use a message box. Messagebox.show. And then you just type in whatever you want. Maybe you don't want a message. Maybe you just want a caption. Maybe you don't want a button or a icon. I think I saw the word none here. Right? Let's see here. None. Let's see what that looks like. Type in the number 7. Okay, so no icon. Just simply the message and a button. And by the way, did you notice that there's no sound? So it looks like these icons also have associated sounds with them. Like if I got rid of this and typed in error. And then let me go ahead and enter a value of 7. And there's a sound right there. So it looks like these icons bring along with them a certain sound to associate that sound with that particular icon, that particular type of error that you're trying to bring to surface for the user. All right, and that is it. So this is Professor Robert Solis. I hope this video lesson was helpful. Have a good day. See you next time.